Well, this I like I said, I could tell we're gonna have fun already. So this is good. This is good.
Yeah. Give me a second. I just wanted to be upside down as a joke. I can flip it around.
It's up to you if you want to do it upside down. I've never done an upside down conversation. I've spoken with plenty of people from
Australia.
And they're upside down.
Yeah.
At least from our North American centric posture. So, now you're right side up.
There we go.
well, Kevin, why don't you? You sent me quite a long email.
Oh yes.
And I looked through it and I thought, boy, in an hour, I don't know how much of this we'll get through. But why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and then we'll dive right in.
All right. I'm a pastor's kid.
Oh boy.
So, yeah. From what I recall, I was baptized around 8 years old, and since then, I've kind of meddled in the faith, and I've been kind of I've noticed I've coasted through a lot of things. And so it when it came to the faith, I was also coasting through. I wasn't really active in it for a while. And so through high school, I could claim I was depressed, but I wouldn't say that. I'd call it a funk. I was in a funk through high school, and I still believed. And then one of my friends said they stopped believing at the age of reason, and I said, that's when I started. So that that was an interesting tidbit I found. As far as like personality or person wise, I'm not sure what I would say that I do. I could say I write, but I haven't finished a book yet. I could say that I was a journalist, but that was a very short thing for a sports, an outdoor sporting magazine. And so right now I'm just attempting to finish a book. Okay. And
how do you put food on the table?
I live at my parents' place.
Oh. Well, yeah. You're not in the basement. I can see
I'm not in the basement. I can tell you right now, there's no basements in Arizona from what I know. That was something I got from another YouTuber, Razor Fist. He said, you can never be said that you live in your mother's basement if you live in Arizona.
That's right. Same for California.
Yeah. But yeah, I've been struggling in that. I used to do janitorial work. And then I did that short stint on the sporting, outdoor sporting magazine. Of course, that was just online. It was just online articles. But it did not provide, it's like $20 an article. That's if you get something done that week. Right. And so it was just, it was all, it was so grating. And I said, Dad, I'm getting below minimum wage for all the hours that I put in for this job. I get below minimum wage. And he says, yeah, that's soul crushing. So, it gets a lot more livelier once we get into Peterson, cause, you can see I got books behind me, and no joke, we just finished that like 2 minutes before this started. That is a brand new shelf.
I'm talking on Paul's channel. Got to put up books.
Yeah. I had another shelf, but it was so shoddy. It was like it was an entertainment center on its side. So it's like no, that doesn't look good. But when I got into Peterson, I started reading again. I'd read like 2 books, and then suddenly I'm hearing this guy and I'm just like, you know, I gotta get into reading again. He keeps saying, go into the great works. And man, that's hard.
Yeah.
So I started small and I did the Red Badge of Courage.
It's a good book.
That's an interesting book to start out with because it's all in vernacular.
Yeah. I haven't read that book in, oh gosh, I read that grade school or something. Yeah, years ago.
Yeah, it's a painful book. It's a very painful book. Let's see. I gotta get to my notes, or else I'll never get through this. And so, when I came into Peterson, I was a very quiet person as far as it came to religion and politics. Until, but you know, that all started around Gamergate and the meme war. The meme war is not something you want to, you know, for anyone watching this, it's not something you want to look up if you're easily offended at all.
I don't think a lot of people watch my channel if they're easily offended.
Yeah.
It's just not the place you want to be.
Yeah. It's not just because it was offensive though. It's no matter what your worldview is, the meme war does not fit your ideology. It is the single most confusing event in human history. For an example, folks, I won't mention for the sake of this video. I'll take a page from Tim Pool and say, individuals that espouse the views of a faction that lost the second greatest human conflict. Those people, or people that espouse those views, were working hand in hand with Jews, atheists, Christians, gay people in a campaign that was nothing but one giant joke. And they just wanted to laugh. That's it. That's all anybody wanted to do with this thing. And then the Pepe thing, and Hillary's team condemned Pepe, and then that exploded, and there's a massive depth into the Pepe lore that Peterson and Pageau did. The metaphysics of Pepe. Yeah. And that explains it extremely well. And through that, I came to Sargon of Akkad. You know him?
Yep.
His channel is unfortunately dying, but he moved over to Akkad Daily. So, but
to explain that, because I know who he is. I've listened to 2 or 3 of his videos. So what's happening with that?
Well, it seems to be Google censorship.
Oh.
And so he started out as a major atheist channel where he's just bashing Christians and just debunking stuff. And then once the whole Gamergate thing started, he got more vocal, and that just got bigger and bigger and bigger until he eventually got involved in British politics. And that's when people start clamping down on you when you start affecting things. So and then he did an interview with Peterson, and that's when I really started to pay attention.
Oh.
Because I was like, I heard about the C-16 thing, and I wasn't really, I was like, oh, there's just another thing happening in another country. And then he's talking to Sargon, and I'm like, okay, something's up. Something's going on. And I dug into Maps of Meaning, and that is a beating.
Yeah.
It's an absolute beating. I read about a page or 2 a day. I couldn't do more than that. It's so dense. It took me months to get that done. But when he had untapped some hunger for, or he had uncorked some hunger for knowledge that I apparently needed. And it was at that point when 80% of the books behind me are read. So that was huge for me because I had been reading about how to write, and people were saying the moment you stop reading, your writing is dead. I'm like, but I haven't even started reading, so how do I start writing?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Good.
gosh.
Good.
Yeah, and the writing is its own story. That was way before Peterson. And I just got out of high school, and I was talking about stories with my best friend, and after high school, I'm just pacing back and forth in my room talking to him on the phone, and I'm angry at myself. I'm almost yelling at him because of how angry I am at myself. I'm like, I can't get this story out of my head. And he said, well, just write it down. I was like, yeah, because it's that easy. No, it's not that easy. But turns out it was easier than I thought it was.
Oh.
When you start, it's the starting. The starting's the problem.
Yeah.
Once you start.
Yep. With one of our kids, we homeschooled our kids, and with one of our kids in particular, it was always the starting, and we'd say starting is half the work. That's just starting. Once you started, well then, but starting is half the work. That's so true.
Yeah. And let's see. So something I came across in your conversation the other day with Voth. You know, I'd be interested in talking to him because he seems like a very interesting writer. It moved me to, like, I have a commentary book that I'm writing for different reasons.
Are you on the Discord?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm
Voth is easy to find on the Discord. He's on a lot.
Is he? Okay.
It's a good place to bump into him.
I decided after that conversation and reading Tactics by Gregory Kokel, that I need to be more Columbo with the way that I confront things, is ask the questions, and that will get you a better, instead of searching for answers. If you search for a good question, you're likely to get more out of it. And the funny aside, Voth means voyage of the hero. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
It's at least on the Urban Dictionary. It's also a surname meaning foot, but I don't think that's applicable.
Voyage of the hero sounds like something Voth would.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
That sounds like something he would do. So I never know where it came up. I only saw it when I met him. He came on the Discord. He came on the Discord fairly, not too long ago. But the Discord is funny because it's, even though they multiply the number of channels, it is every means of community has its limitations, and I think you need that to actually have community. But there's some people who are pretty active on the Discord, and he's one of them.
Some quotes that I got from that video.
That was a good talk, wasn't it?
Oh, that was a very good talk. I could watch that 5 more times. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Simulation theories, creationism for atheists.
Yeah.
Oh, that hit me. I was like, oh, I can see it. It's amazing. Oh, and I end up wishing I teared up with him when he said, I end up wishing for heaven to be a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's just like, this guy is a writer. This guy is a writer.
He is. You could tell just talking to him, and he was describing to me some of what he's writing. I thought, yeah, dude, you gotta do this. You gotta do this. And of course, writing. I'd say writers are more rare than musicians.
Yes.
But there's still a lot of them out there, and so to get recognized and found and sustain a lifestyle at it's not easy. But you still got
a video on that. Yeah, you can't. It's very difficult to monetize the arts.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, the one that hit me more than anything was when he said, when I was little, the world seemed more structured and proper, and it was a thing at which I could rebel. And now it's like a puddle, and it's like I gotta help rebuild it so that I can rebel properly.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can see the puddle and the ocean, and the you can not the puddle, the tower and the ocean, that and one falling into the other. I couldn't contain my excitement hearing him say something like that, because I'm seeing so many interesting things following this Peterson journey of especially on your channel, of people from every walk of life going in the same direction.
Yeah.
Because you look at both sides of the Peterson phenomena, and you've got Christians all coming together. Hey, we have this foundation, and then the other side is all these seculars saying, hey, we have this same foundation, and it's the same foundation as the Christians.
Yeah. And boy, you just said it really well, because I think, with the possible exception of Tom Holland, I think I'm probably more excited about his book than anyone, even though a lot of people have told me they're reading it and really enjoying it. But I think he's just sort of put it into words that sort of through Dominion, you can see that dynamic. And it's not, so I've been talking to Tom Holland, and we might talk in February. We might do a conversation. Yeah.
Oh, great.
But it seems to be, we need a certain distance from Christendom to see it. And that's, the way it is with really big things. You can't see it. I mean, if you ever go to Yosemite Valley and you're up close to, El Capitan or something like that, it's just, it's just gray. It's not until you get a little ways back that you say, oh, wow, that's significant. So no, I think you just said it very well. I started this morning. I thought to myself, what was the first video Jordan Peterson made? So I thought, well, I can find that. I'll just scroll through. So scroll. And so I watched his first one, and then I started, and I realized I'd never watched his first one. And then I started watching his second one, and I thought, there's, it's the stuff that endures that is most true and most real usually. And this is going to be, even with Peterson's silence over the last 7 months or so, it's his stuff is out there, and the impact endures. It's almost like when Peterson kept putting new things in, well, then we're just sort of riding him. Well, now since he's been silent, now it's like, okay, well, now we've got to do a little bit more effort to go back and mine some of those riches and continue doing that work.
Yeah. His absence, though, has also been felt. Like, we all miss him.
Yeah.
And I sent him something on Twitter. Let's see, I put it in the notes here. It was to Peterson before I watched the Voth conversation. I said, "Sir, I hope you're better and the family is happy.
Yeah.
I also wish to express the deep desire of your fans for the return of the biblical series. It changed lives, sir.
Yeah.
Buccos all around the world are looking for the foundation of their culture explained clearly."
Yeah.
And I've got a commentary on Exodus over there waiting.
But which one? But by whom?
I'm not sure. There's no byline. I'm sorry. It just says Exodus. I can't see it from here. But I'm waiting to read it, because I want to read through that and then watch the video and see where he's going. But there's a gap there's a gap in this conversation since he's been gone.
Yes, yes. And the longer the gap goes, the more we feel it.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's very true.
I've also loved Dave Rubin's journey.
Yeah, yes.
Oh my
very
goodness.
Interesting.
Who was he talking to? The Irish gentleman? He's Irish.
Oh, John Lennox.
Lennox, yeah. Oh my goodness, that conversation. I'm sitting here on the edge of my seat, like, what is he going to say next?
Yeah.
He's like, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't know what I believe, but I can't say that I'm an atheist anymore. I'm like, whoa.
Have you seen? There's a YouTuber out there, Mouthy Buddha. Have you seen his video on Nobody Likes Dave Rubin?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to do. I've got 10 videos I want to do for every one, and already I make too many videos. I mean, it's just true.
Well, you probably noticed my meddlings on Twitter because I'm the one that keeps suggesting people to talk to you. I'm that guy.
Well, who are you on Twitter?
One Tether.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, okay. I'm that guy. I keep pushing, like, hey, talk to the pastor of the IDW. Yeah, I really want Dave to bring you into the conversation, and on one hand, it's fantastic that your channel is small. On the other hand, I want you to talk to more people because you've got the Christian insight on these things.
I'm follower number 13 of you now, so.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. I'm follower number 13. Proud number 13.
I appreciate that. So we're 26 or 25 minutes in. Yeah.
Time. Gosh, yes. I hate time.
Yeah. I want to get to this subject of the upside down. But no. The whole point of wanting to talk to you is I want to pick your brain.
Okay.
So this is so jump in anytime here. I'm just gonna go through the notes that I sent you. I've got a lot of commentary here. So Christians appear upside down to everyone else, but as the world becomes more upside down, the more normal we look. That's good. Jesus himself looked upside down to his disciples. He's not acting right. Last is first, slaves are free, weak is strong. It's like, and I've gotten really confused and annoyed with the defeatism in the Christian camps. This is like, guys, we're doing fine. It's like, but I understand that. I've been in a lot of churches where I've seen it dying, but there's, ever since the Peterson thing, I'm only seeing growth. I have only seen growth since the Peterson thing, and it's not in churches, which I actually think is more important. Because we've got too much going on in the church. It's just like, come on, it needs to be out there. But
yeah. Well, and that's what's been so encouraging to me about the meetups that I've done. Mm-hmm. It's that, I mean, and churches, it's taken churches a little while to catch on, but they are, and they're understanding. I mean, churches have always had an understanding that they're too insular, mm-hmm. but doing something about it is hard, and so no, you're right, and I love the way you put that, and I've been thinking a lot about that in my preaching and in my teaching, how just how disruptive Jesus is, mm-hmm. and I think my most important, one of my favorite times of the week is Sunday morning, my adult Sunday school class, which I post on the church channel, which is different from my channel.
Yeah.
And because it's just so much fun. We're going through the Gospel of John, and we go through the Gospel of John very slowly. And it's just so disruptive. It's so disruptive. And Jesus, yeah. And Jonathan Pageau's been super helpful with a lot of this stuff. I mean, just his insights have just opened up new avenues of understanding for me. So
you described it the other day. I keep coming up with things to say, and then you'll come out with a new video, and I'm just like, I just thought that. But you said it the other day, that the first time you saw his stuff, it was like, what does any of this mean? It's like, if this is all just shapes and pictures and stuff. It's like, there's no meaning in any of this. Like, where's the substance? And you look, and it's just trickling out little meanings, and everything that's like, oh, you got to step back and see the whole picture.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah, and I went through a book recently by Michael something. I can't remember. It's The Unseen Realm.
Oh yeah, Michael Heiser.
Heiser, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That'll mess with your theology.
And a lot of people recommend Heiser to me, and I own some of his books on Kindle, and I've looked at some of them. Part of the problem is that there, the balance between known and unknown territory. If there's a lot of known territory, like Michael Heiser stuff, for me, it's like, yeah, and I lose interest. But you got to kind of be patient to pick some of the other stuff up, because his books tend to be geared more towards a lay audience. And so he covers a lot of things you have to cover if you're dealing with a general lay audience. So, but a lot of people recommend his books to me.
Well, I recently recommended it to Stefan from the Uber Boyos. I've been chatting with him through email, and
I love those guys. Those guys are so much fun. I love those guys.
He recently came out with a video. He and I talked, and I said, you and I need to talk, because you're getting some theology wrong here. And he said, I'd love to talk. And I was like, oh, okay. What if all four of us talk? And so, but I said, but if I tried to, shoehorn that in. So
I'm always happy to talk to the Uber Boyos. So if you want to try and get a big conversation together, and if I can make my schedule work, count me in, because I'm more than happy to talk to those boys. I love their enthusiasm, their go get itness, their say anything. And you say enough, you're going to get a bunch of stuff wrong. I know that about myself, but at least they're out there doing it. So good on them.
But I know why he's saying it. It's very story driven. It's very young.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I understand your vision of this. I know why you're saying it, but there's an error that is very deep in Christianity. So it's just like, okay, we need to hammer this out, and it would be a great conversation. And I wanted to involve him and what's his friend's name? Huh?
Jimmy,
yeah. I wanted to involve his friends and also you, because you're a pastor. I'm a pastor's kid. I don't know everything. You know a lot more than I do. I can tell you that. But because I'm just trying to dig more into my own theology.
Yeah.
But on the upside down, I gotta get back to this.
Yep.
The intersectionality thing, the individuality yeah, the intersectionality, individuality of the hero discussion with Jonathan Pageau. That was Peterson and Pageau. And Pageau said the marginal. He had said he had always found himself as a very marginal person, which I found kind of funny. But he said the marginal can serve the center. And Peterson said, yes, but the margin should serve the center. And the center should serve the margin. They should be serving each other, not just excluding each other.
Right.
And Pageau said, first, last, last, first, lowest is the fool, and the highest is the holy fool. It's just like, so he's throwing it all together. And you could see the kind of flat earth representation of just a thing. You know, the monsters are on the outside, but I was trying to look, you know, Google is very helpful, but sometimes it'll throw you into weird things, and I was just trying to look at the upside down world. Stranger Things has completely taken over that.
Yeah.
That if you try to search that, that subject is entirely in the Stranger Things. And I looked into...
That's a flaw with Google, that sometimes if you really want to drill down in something, if there's a big popular thing, it's like you got to figure out how to exclude that in your Google search.
Yeah, it's become a hydra.
Yeah.
But that Stranger Things seems to fall into the same camp as a lot of the secular things that I've seen when it comes to the upside down. Because Pageau, when he says upside down, there are negative connotations. Things that are upside down can be bad, but that doesn't mean they're bad inherently.
Right.
But you know, with a lot of secular things, the Stranger Things, the upside down world is entirely evil. It is poisonous, you know. But the story of the upside down world from Symbolism is one of otherness and inclusion. Finding the Romanian and the Ukrainian stories about the upside down world, or actually those are kind of separate. The Romanians see the upside down world. The Ukrainians see an underground. Because in Ukraine, there's a lot of tunnels for some reason, and people don't know why, which I found kind of fascinating. Let's see. I'm bogged down in my notes here. Yes, Ukraine. In Ukraine, there's a settlement called I'm going to butcher this. Zemchesky. The surrounding villages tell legends about a town that went underground. And in the mountains near the village, they went underground in the mountains near the village at a riverbank. And the name of the place is Zivinharad. It's the bell-ringing city in Ukrainian. And they're called that because they hear the sound of church bells, loud, clear, ringing bells, and they can hear these bells coming from underground, which is very strange. And there's and that's when we get to the folks that you particularly picked out on your response to my long email is the Ramans, or as I'll just continue to refer to them as the Blajini. They are they're probably the most inspiring thing I found in a while, which is saying something from a story point of view. Because you watch Star Wars and you watch Lord of the Rings and you read books, but I mean, here's Christians that have no year, they have no sense of time. They are, they have no idea when Easter comes, and there's a tradition in Easter. They call it the Easter of Deaths, or Mighty Easter in Romanian, and they'll dye eggs. They'll peel them, they'll eat them, and then they'll take the eggshells to the local river and scatter them in the river, believing that the waters will run underground. And they'll come to the other side. And when the people on the other side, the Blajini, see these eggshells, they'll know it's Easter time and it's time to celebrate. Now, why would they do that? Why would you want to help these monsters on the other side of the world? Well, that's the most upside down thing about this thing. I can't think of anything more marginal than literally being forced underground or on the other side of a flat world. But their behavior is also upside down, because you'd think if you're in a very earthly version of hell, the other side of the world, why would you pray? How could you even think to be devout? And yet these are the most devout people you will ever meet. They're, there's a secular game, I should say, in secular culture, there is a game, Secret Worlds, Legends, and the Blajini are treated like any other fairy folk. They're just trickster goblins that help the weak. Their religious aspects are almost stripped of them. And so they just steal trinkets that you don't appreciate and they give them to the poor. And that takes the meaning from this beautiful story.
Right. And a lot of it's interesting if you look at what a lot of fantasy video games, or maybe even role-playing games, how that's what they tend to do with folklore and mythologies. It's an interesting stripping that they do, and then the residue that's left.
It's like, this will make it more palatable to all audiences. It's just like, it was already palatable to all audiences. Yeah. So there's a foundation that's in this story that there's something that we have in common with something that is completely alien to us, that is completely outside. And this is the only story I've seen where the culture and Christian stories were more than facets. They weren't just clothes. It's not a pagan story that hints at Christianity, or a Christian story that hints at paganism like fairies in Europe. It's a melding of an ancient, long dead people that have gone away underground or on the other side of the world, with the fears and imagined shadows in the forest all poured into these monstrous little people that are more pious and devout than any of us could ever hope to be.
Yeah, that is such an interesting aspect to that.
Yeah.
Did you ever read any George MacDonald? You know who he was?
I know the name.
George MacDonald was one of C.S. Lewis's favorite authors. And Lewis credits MacDonald, at least partially, for his conversion to Christianity. And a lot of MacDonald's books are really strange for us to read, but his Curdie books, Curdie and the Princess and the Goblins, those are very easy books to read, and they're people, Peterson talks about it's hard to write a fairy tale. Well, almost anything that's been written in the last 500 years doesn't really qualify for fairy tale status, because it's got to be around a lot longer than this to qualify. But Princess and the Goblins, Princess and Curdie by George MacDonald, I tend to think these stories likely were, I don't really know if they're based on, but MacDonald sort of conjures them up. And MacDonald was a very interesting figure himself. He was sort of on this liminal edge between modernity and antiquity, and
like Pageau.
And so Lewis loved, and so, for example, in The Great Divorce, which is Lewis's, this is Lewis's Aeneid, perhaps in some ways, or Lewis's Inferno, where someone needs to walk the character through what's sort of purgatory, which is sort of the foothills of heaven in The Great Divorce. It's George MacDonald that's Lewis's guide in a sense. And so you would just from what you've written, you should look up, and they're in public domain, so you don't need money to download them, but look up George MacDonald, The Princess and the Goblin, or the stories about Curdie. I'll put them in the notes here. I read them to my children when I was homeschooling them, and not everything I brought to my children they enjoyed, but those books they liked, and that was really a good sign. And I first heard about them through Tim Keller, who of course was a huge Tolkien fan, a huge Lewis fan, and therefore, if you're looking at Tolkien and you're looking at Lewis, you're going to find your way to George MacDonald. And you might look at that, because really interesting stuff.
I read I think I read the person that inspired Tolkien, and he wrote a really odd book called Fantastis.
Yeah, that's him.
That's him?
Yeah, that's him.
That's him. Okay,
yeah, that's him.
Yeah, the symbolism in that book is just, that's deeper than I could see.
yeah, that's him. That's why I said a lot of his books are like, you read them and like, what's going on in this book?
Yeah.
But Princess and Curdie and Princess and the Goblin, those they're easy to read, they're fun to read, you can read them to children, but like good stuff like this, they're multi-layered.
What was I? Oh, on C.S. Lewis, since you mentioned them, I think I got the recommendation from somebody that you spoke to, but I found a free version of the audio reading of the Space Trilogy. Oh man, I don't know why that isn't more popular.
Yeah.
I cannot for the life of me. That it's more moving than the Narnia series. The second book is the most impactful bit of fiction I think I've read.
If you give me permission to share this video and we share what you just said, I know some people that are going to be falling over.
Oh yeah.
Enjoy, because there are some huge Space Trilogy fans out there, and I haven't read them since I was too young to appreciate them, and they keep saying you gotta read the Space Trilogies, and I haven't yet. I have to reread them.
You almost don't need the first and the last one, but the middle one is it's Genesis.
Just Paralandra.
Yeah, it's Genesis and Mark at the same time. and it tells you the whole story. And the conflict that he was in with the evil was the most visceral thing. And I'm sure if I was reading it, it wouldn't have been that odd. But hearing the audiobook version, listen to it in the audiobook version, because the evil just saying his name over and over again, ransom, ransom, ransom. It's so unnerving. It just keeps going and going and going, and it gets into you, and you're freaked out by this thing that all it does is kill. Ugh.
I have to. I have so many books I'm doing, but you're just, I mean, every little recommendation, it's just like, tick, tick, put it up higher on my, put it up on my list higher.
Yeah. But with the Blajini, these evil little monsters, these evil looking monsters, they just look evil. If you looked at them, you would freak out. And they pray and fast all year for people on the other side of the world that they have never met.
Wow.
They're rat-faced goblins praying for you, and that kind of feels wrong, right?
Yep.
It's like that. There's something, it doesn't make sense, but of course it doesn't. That's why it's upside down. So
that is such a cool idea. That is such a cool idea.
Every aspect. You look at Jesus's ministry, and every aspect of it was completely upside down.
Yeah.
In the world, the Romans would look at that and go, "What are you? Where are you from?"
Yeah.
What distant country are you from? I was like, he's not from a country.
I was just talking about that in my adult Sunday school class yesterday, about just kind of going through the Gospel of John and saying, look at his interchange with his mother at the wedding of Cana. Look at his interchange with Nicodemus. Look at his interchange with the woman at the well. In each case, it is so upside down that Jesus is supposed to be the enemy of the Samaritans, and this woman is supposed to be at the bottom of the pile in their village, but they come to celebrate him as the savior of the world, and she comes to have status as his apostle to that village. And it's like, that's not supposed to happen. And Nicodemus comes in, and Nicodemus is supposed to be a leader and a teacher of Israel, and Jesus just takes him apart and says, you don't know anything. And that's, and in each time everything goes by, and every time, and John the Baptist is already supposed to be upside down, but Jesus comes and disorients John the Baptist. And, Jesus just always disorients. And and again, because usually what happens is once the inversion happens, we say, oh, okay, it's inverted. Just like you started out this upside down in this conversation. If we had kept it like that way, after a while, our mind sort of would adjust it and been fine. But Jesus, we just can't.
We don't know how to do the flip.
Right. We can't do it. And so he's always.
Yeah.
And it's right there, it's in all the Gospels. And it's part of the reason those books are so outrageously popular. No, notwithstanding how anyone dismisses those books. And again, Tom Holland notes that in that Delling podcast, which is a quote and a slide. And someone took that slide out of my sermon this Sunday and put it in a thing on Twitter. And I thought, one thing I learned from the George W. Bush administration, I used to listen to him, I thought, he's so repetitive. And then I thought, no, actually, that's really smart, because if you actually want to communicate, you have to beat it through people's thick skulls. And you do that through repetition. But you're going to have to, you can't, that's Bernie Sanders. That's Bernie Sanders' secret to his success. The dude doesn't change. And for 50 years, he's been doing the same thing. I mean, that's just who he is. That's the secret of his success. So the crazy thing about Jesus is you could just never capture him.
Yeah.
And in that way, you know, these fairy tales that you have, that's exactly the function that they serve.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, I just took the last bit of your time. So you are going to give me permission to share this, aren't you? Or do you want me to send it to you first and look at it, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
good,
share it. Share it.
Because this, you know, I mean, there's all these nerds out there who are on the Discord server, and once this one comes through, they're going to eat this one up with a spoon. So,
I wanted to tell you this. If a modern upside down for you for the IDW.
Okay.
Look up Heraclitus and Democritus, those paintings, and you'll see Jordan Peterson and probably yourself, because you can compare it. Jordan Peterson holding the philosophy of bias of Preen and the temperament of Heraclitus, because Heraclitus was the weeping philosopher, and he's also holding the science of Democritus, who is the laughing philosopher, and you have the temperament of Democritus.
Oh, that's interesting.
I always see you laughing, you know,
Yeah,
and but you hold the science of Heraclitus and the philosophy of bias of Preen on that same point. On the whole thing, the wheel. There's one wheel to this anchor, and it's this. You have the same philosophy, and in the same way, the IDW hinges on one point, and that's free speech. And there's a fun fact about Democritus. He was known for laughing at everything, and Hippocrates of the Hippocratic Oath was called in to diagnose his hysteria. What's wrong with him? He found that Democritus was more sane than his colleagues, and Democritus is known today as the father of the atom. He came up with the idea of particles making everything up, but people rejected that for Aristotle's four elements. And Democritus would have laughed if he had learned he was right. Just as you do in every video I see you in.
Well, people talk about my laugh. Christianity, I mean, I'm a Calvinist. I'm supposed to be dour.
Yeah.
And I can be really dour. I mean, ask my wife. I once made my kids cry by announcing we were going to Disneyland. I said it in such a way that my kids wept. And I still won't, can't get over that in my family. But I believe if you're a Christian, then your defining state is joy. And because, in this world you will have trouble, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. I mean, that is in a sense, to be a follower of Jesus, it's both the cruciform, but also the joyful.
Yeah.
And in Peterson, well, the crazy thing about Jesus is that Jesus brings them both together. And most of the time, when we try and bring contradictory things together in this world, we do it with balance. And Jesus doesn't do that. He brings them both up together. So these diverse excellencies, as Jonathan Edwards talked about, Jesus actually brings them together. That's why he's the Lamb of God. And you think, God? Lamb? Those things don't mix. No, there's the Lamb of God. And the Lamb, see the Lamb, hear a lion. And the book of Revelation is full of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So, well, you and I have a sense you and I could talk a long time.
Oh yeah.
So we'll
that's my family. We're known for that.
Where are you in Arizona?
We're in Surprise. Yeah.
Where is Surprise, Arizona?
It's Northwest Phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will be in Tucson, Arizona in early March.
I will be there.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. I look forward to meeting you, and there will be lots of fun people to meet. We'll have a giant there, who I've had on my channel before. I mean, people look at me and say I'm big. When I stand next to my friend Rod, I'm not big.
Rod.
He's that big.
Okay.
And so we'll have a giant there, and we'll have a Job there, and we'll have a John there. So it's going to be a great time.
Job's inspirational. He's been fun to follow.
He is. So thank you so much, Kevin. And I will probably post this tomorrow because I don't like keeping, conversations too long. And I don't have a video set for tomorrow yet. So this will be the one.
Oh yeah. And you'll be hearing from Stefan about that group talk. I'm gonna email him after this.
Well, that sounds good to me.
All right. Thank you very much, Paul.
Oh, my pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye.